you ready to Snapplique? This video is part of a series for the Happy Halloween quilt by Amy Bradley Designs. Snapplique is an automated method to take a paper quilt pattern, scan it into the ScanNCut, and convert it into a machine embroidery design. You can even use the ScanNCut to cut out all your pieces. You'll be able to create blocks like this for your quilt with an embroidery machine and no longer have to go around each individual piece with a domestic sewing machine. This method is a lot of fun and it's a real time saver, and I hope you join me. Let's get to it. In this video, I'm going to go over how to create the background quilting designs for different hoop sizes. In all of the videos making the monsters that I'm doing, you will see me using a 9x14 hoop. And I'm in Brilliance right now, and you can see down here at the bottom of the screen, it says 9 7/16 by 14 3/16, or 9x14 or 9.5x14 in layman's terms. Up here, I have these different tabs, 9x14, 8x12, 6x10. If you're using a different size other than the 9x14 or the 6x10, the concepts that I show for the 8x12 will work for you no matter what size hoop you are using. I do not recommend that you do this for the 5x7. For the 9x14, which if you've got that hoop, you're going to bring in the scribble background block. And this is the block that is from Designs by Juju. It is the background quilting just for this quilt. And I've got a link to this below where you can get all of the supplies and everything. I'm going to click on this design, right click and copy, and I'm going to bring it over to the 9x14, right click and paste. Now this has pasted into the center of the hoop. The finished block size is 9x11.5. I want to create some guidelines for where that finished block size is. And to do that, you can grab one of the ruler markers up here, not on the number, but on one of the lines. You can grab it and drag it down. 9x11.5. Half of 11.5 is 5 3/4. So I'm going to drag this down to the 5 3/4 mark right there that is below the 0 center. Make sure you are on inch up here in the left versus millimeter. You want to use that inch line. I got a ruler guide here that I don't need. I want to grab the other one. I'm just going to grab on a line and I'm going to drag it down to 5 3/4 right there. Let me get this one straight. Right there is 5 3/4. And then it is 9, and half of 9 is 4.5. I'm going to grab a ruler guide and drag it over to the 4.5 inch mark, past 0 center, and one more 4.5 below the 0 center. That's great. Now what I can do with this design is I'm going to use my arrow keys because it is already perfectly centered in the hoop, and I'm going to use my arrow keys to move it up to just past horizontal center. I'm scrolling in and out of the screen using the roll button on my mouse, the wheel. And then I'm going to use my arrow key to move it over, that it is just past 0 center vertically, and it's not over the ruler guideline. That's really good right there. That'll work. And I need to fill the hoop with this design. I'm going to right click on it, copy, right click and paste. And it pasted exactly on top of itself. The second one over here in the objects panel is highlighted, and I want to flip that horizontally. I'm going to click off and then select it again over here in the objects panel and use my arrow keys to move it over so that it is past vertical center and still above horizontal center. You want to use your arrow keys to prevent any kind of wonky movement that might happen. And this looks pretty good. They look balanced between the ruler guides and the ends. This one maybe could go over just one more click, I don't know, something like that. That looks pretty good. To build the bottom half of it, I want to Control A to select all, right click, copy, right click, paste. When you copy and paste in Brilliance, you need to be on the main screen. If you do it over here in the Objects panel, you won't get that menu. With the new ones selected, they have copied and pasted right on top of the old one. I want to flip that vertically. Click off and then reselect them in the Objects panel. I held down the Control key to select them individually and use the arrow keys to move them below the horizontal center. And there we go. That's the design right there for the 9x14 hoop. If you're going to be using the Trimmer by George, you will want to create a basting box so that you've got a line to run the edge of that ruler up against. You can go to Utility and Baste Design. And Embrilliance automatically created that basting box first. I know you can't see it, but it's there. And if you select where the picture is, you can see right here the measurements for the basting box are 8 and 13/16 by 10 and 15/16. I want to change that because I want that line to be just outside of the finished block size. And remember, the finished block is 9 by 11.5. I'm going to make sure that my little lock here is unlocked, and the width I want to be 9 space 1/8, so 9 1/8. That gives me a 1/16 of an inch to put that basting line into the seam allowance, which is plenty. And on the 10 and 15/16, I want this to be 11, and remember it's 11.5. 1/2 plus 1/8 is 5/8, so 5/8. There we go. You can see the ruler guides are just inside of that basting box, and that's perfect. That's exactly what we need. So this is finished. I will File, Save Stitch File As, and I saved it to 9x14- basting, so I know that there is a basting box on that one, and click Save, Overwrite, sure, why not? That's it. Every time I create a monster block, the last thing I do, I will pull this in and then make sure in the Objects panel that it stitches first. Now let's talk about the 8x12. On the 8x12 hoop, again, you're going to bring in the background quilting, right click and copy, and bring it back, right click and paste. And you just want to take it and move it up so that it is, ignore the hoop right now, just ignore that. It is just inside of that center vertical line and just outside or inside of that horizontal vertical line. In the 8x12, you're going to do your background stitching half and half. In the 9x14, you're going to do your background stitching all at once. In the 8x12, you're going to do it half and half. While you've got this highlighted, right click and copy, click off, right click and paste, and it pasted right on top of itself. And then you want to come up to flip vertical and click off of it, and then click back on the selection in the Objects panel, and then use your arrow keys and come straight down using your arrow keys and put it in the bottom quadrant of the design. That is going to give you the most stable vertical design right there. To do a basting stitch with this, I recommend that you use the chalk lines around the measurement on the fabric and use a domestic machine for that. That's going to be the easiest way to do that. If you can figure out how to do it using your embroidery machine, that'd be great. This is exactly what it needs to be. I can see by the ruler guides I'm within the allowable amount, and then all I have to do now, both of these are selected, I'm going to click center in the hoop. You do want to print this out. I'll give you a look. We can go File, and I'll do Print Preview right here. It's going to give you your vertical and your horizontal lines. This is what you will print out and fold it on your lines right there in order to make sure that you are centered. And that's going to tell you where you can put your target sticker in order to begin stitching. When it comes time to do the second half of the design, you'll just rotate it 180 degrees in your embroidery machine, or if your machine doesn't have that ability, you'll just flip your background fabric around and stitch it the other way. If you have the 6x10, I'm going to come back over here to the scribble background, right click, copy. Let's go here, right click and paste. All right. You're going to do the exact same thing as you did on the 8x12, where you have to do a printout and get your crosshairs to figure out where zero center is. Instead of doing it 2 times, you're going to do it 4 times. For this particular way, you are going to have to do 2 separate designs. For instance, I want to show you. Look how we have the big finger bubbles here all the way up in this corner. If we rotate it, that's not going to work to put it down here because of the orientation of the design. It is taller than it is wider. 4 5/16 by 5 5/16. It is taller than it is wide. If you just do a rotation, it's not going to work. You have to do 2 separate designs for this. Let me show you. You're going to need this one right here. That's the one we're looking at right now in the 6x10. And then you need to flip it and you need to do this one right here. This one is identical to this corner and this one is identical to this corner. You need to make sure you're doing the right design for the orientation. I would save this one as 6x10.pes, and then let me do that. I'll go File, Save Stitch File as 6x10.pes. That's what this is right here. We'll just click Save. Do I want to replace it? I'm going to tell it no, but you can tell it. You can save your own if you want. And then you're going to make sure it is selected. And you're going to flip horizontally. And you're going to call it File, Save Stitch File as 6x10. And I'm going to call it REV for reverse. Make sure you put that REV on the left side of the period before PES or whatever your home embroidery machine format is. And I'm going to save it. Yes, I want to save that. You will do 2 separate printouts, and you need to do this because when we go File, Print Preview, here is part of the crosshairs for that file. If you want to put a snowman on it, you can. Let me open this up. And let me go into Preferences, and let's go to Printing, and let's print an alignment snowman. See how that does. If we go File, Print Preview, there he is. There's your center hash mark to be able to fold your design. I wanted to show you how to do some hooping if you do not have a large hoop. In all of the videos on my monster blocks, you're going to see me stitching these in a 9x14 hoop, which is plenty big. If you have the big 10x16 and that's all you have, that's fine. You can do this in that larger one as well. You're just going to have some extra stabilizer and batting left over, and then you can franken-bat that stabilizer together and the batting ends and all that. So you can always reuse them. And I have a sample here where I can show you. I did just that. I actually stitched together a couple of end strips of stabilizer, and I just used a join stitch on the domestic sewing machine. If you don't have a join stitch, a very, very large zigzag will work, and that's fine. Okay, the biggest key to making sure that you get this right is to make sure that you have enough stabilizer and batting for the final block. And I would cut the final block about 1 inch or so larger than necessary for your piece of fabric. That's going to make things a lot easier in case you get draw up. There's not a lot, but you might get some draw up from the embroidery stitching. Now on this piece of fabric, this is larger than what I need, but I took a chalk marker and I outlined the final block size. So these yellow marks are at 9 by 11.5. The way to find that is to fold the fabric in half and give it a good press one way, and then do the same thing and give it a good press the other way, so you have a real definitive center and you can see that. And then I have a chalk marker. This is a clover. This one is my favorite. I'll link to all of the things I'm going to talk to you about below in the description box. But this is a clover. It has a little rolling wheel on the end and you get a real fine line. I came to love this when I was doing garment sewing, and it's perfect for making tiny little lines on my projects for embroidery as well. So I will just take a ruler, okay? So if the width of the block is 9, then I measure with a line at 4.5. I put the 4.5 inch mark on center, and then right out here is where I'll mark this edge, and then move it to the 4.5 here and mark this edge. Half of 11.5 is 5 3/4. So I measured from 5 3/4. I put the 5 3/4 mark on center and then drew a line out here, and I did it again down here. That is how you get the final block size. So all of this would be considered seam allowance, and you can cut that to whatever width that you are comfortable sewing with. Okay, one tool that I have learned to love over the years is called a dime hoop mat. And the dime hoop mat, it comes in 2 colors. They have pink and they have blue. And I love the dime hoop mat because it's got these very dark, long crosshairs on the mat, and your hoop will not slip. For all of these blocks, I floated them. And what that means to float is that I hoop the stabilizer but not the products. So let me put this in. How this works is we'll do the 6 by 10 first. So your hoop has definitive marks on it, side to side, top and bottom, for north, south, east, and west. And I will just kind of get that there where they need to go, and then place the stabilizer in there. And if you don't have enough, like I'm a little short here, okay, I could certainly do that. That would work just fine. It doesn't matter, right? So I can put this in, okay, and then screw it nice and tight. Brother has a handy dandy little screw tool that has the end of the screwdriver right here, and you can tuck it inside to where it's in that hole, and then that allows you to slip this over the edge of that thumb screw and really be able to tighten it well. This is very handy. Okay. So I'm putting the points north, south, east, and west on the black lines on the hoop mat. This is the best money spent when it comes to old school hooping to figure out center on things. Okay. And then I'm going to fold my batting in half and lay it on the line, so I know I have plenty. Now I can't see the lines in the hoop anymore, but I can see the lines right here and right here. Okay, so if I lift them, I can still see. I recommend that you print. This is if you have a smaller hoop size than the 9x14. Okay, this is what I have set up for the 8x12, and this is what I have for the 6x10. Okay, so for the 6x10, you want to print it so you either get the crosshairs on there, or Embrilliance now has the ability to print your little snowman, which is very handy. If you don't have snowman ability for camera recognition, that's okay. No big deal. And what you're going to do, because you marked the quarters of the fabric, okay, I'm just going to kind of get an idea and make sure that I'm fairly center. So because I have marked the outside edge of the block, I'm going to take this inner corner and I'm going to line it up right to the inner corner, right there. So I can see I'm not over horizontal center and I'm not over vertical center, and yet I'm still evenly balanced within the yellow lines, okay? You want to pre-fold your fabric on the crosshairs. So I'm going to fold it down and then fold it over one more time so I have a quarter. And then Designs and Machine Embroidery makes these wonderful target stickers. These are great. They have a crosshair on them with an arrow so that you know which way is up, okay? And I'm just going to take this crosshair and I'm going to put 1/4 of it underneath and line it up just like that. And that's how I know where center of this design is. And then I can take my fabric and my batting and with my thumb just kind of place it center. This is going to get you in the neighborhood. That's all you really need right now. You do want it to be visually straight, but just get it in the neighborhood. You're going to be able to exactly place your needle placement when you get to the machine. This crosshair right here is your 0 center. So you can take pins then, and up outside of the yellow lines you can pin your fabric. This is called floating and it works really, really well. You don't run the risk of having your design pull in and pucker on you because it's been hooped too tightly after you remove it from the hoop. I float 99.9% of the time. So I'm pinning outside of center and outside of the yellow. And there we go. So we're ready to go to the embroidery machine and do our first pass on the 6x10. I've already done one pass of the 8x12. Here you go. So you can see that I put 8x12 up here, okay? Now I don't have an 8x12 hoop, I only have a 9x14. That's why I have so much extra stabilizer and batting on this. So again, I love the hoop mat. I've got my centers marked with a Sharpie on this. It's a wag, it's okay. And this is that other percent of the time I won't be floating. Okay. And I want to pin this down. I want to pin it out smooth. I'm not going to do it on the side margins because I'm not sure where the hoop is going to be. So I will do it out here on the bottom and the top. Okay. Now, because I printed this, I'm going to make sure that my little ends are flipped, okay? But I just want to line it up and get it close to center. Make sure it's not outside of the yellow line. That looks really good. I've got it on the center fold here, This looks great. Okay, and there is the quarter fold. And again, you want to pre-fold your little templates. And that is 0 center for this one, okay? And then I'm going to take this and put it approximately center. And the reason you want this to be approximately center is you don't want your machine to say you need to change to a larger hoop when you really don't. You know you don't. So the closer you are to your center for your target sticker to be on center in the design, the less chance you have of being told that you need a larger hoop. And the trick to these is to stand this up on its edge right by the embroidery arm, lay it down, hold the fabric, and slide that out. So don't throw that piece away. That looks pretty good. Okay, so this one is ready to stitch out as well. Let's go over to the machine. I have the 6x10 hoop in the machine, and you can see the needles not over the target sticker right now, but I haven't hit the embroidery button yet. So I have the pattern pulled up and I'm going to touch embroidery, and it didn't move. All right, so let's say you don't have a camera and you don't have that fancy W foot to be able to give you a crosshair on your design. So what you can do is to hit your layout button, and I like to go to the rotate, because on rotate I can rotate, and I can rotate here, and I've got jog buttons right there. So what I can do is just use those jog buttons to move over. I think that's about right. And then move up. And then what you do is you use the hand wheel. And you want to bring the hand wheel down and see how close you are to center. I'm still a little off on it. I need to come over this way. Nope, the other way. And bring that hand wheel down. Get as close to center as possible. And up one more. This is old school, you guys. Maybe one more jot. There we go, I'm dead center. And if your embroidery foot is not lifted up high enough, the machine will tell you, but what you can do is you can put your presser foot down and put it back up. And that way it's at the accurate height. Remove your sticker, don't sew that to your project. Ask me how many times I've done that. And you're ready to go. You can just hit start. And it's going to stitch out the first quarter of your design. And you will repeat this process 3 more times in order to get all of your background quilting done. Okay, let me show you how to rehoop this. And you're going to take your paper and you need to flip it over from the back side. Okay? And just put it right up close to the center fold, because you need to make sure you've got your big loops going down to the outside corner. These big loops are all in the outer corners. So this is how you line this up. Fold it down. Make sure that you're not over the edge of your yellow line, and fold it over. And then put this in that quadrant right there. And I want to put this about center. If you don't have anything down here, you can use a scrap of stabilizer. It doesn't matter how many layers of this you use, it won't change the hand of your block. So you can just layer in a scrap. Okay, make sure that's nice and big. You want this approximately center, but you know it's going to stitch because you can see that the hoop is just fine. So here's center of the bottom. All hoops will have an indicator of some sort of the top and the bottom. So let's go back over to the machine. I'm going to go to embroidery, memory, wireless, and I'm going to pull up that 6x10 reverse until it's set. There we go, embroidery. And I need to get the needle right over the target sticker. Okay, that's pretty close to perfect right there. Pull this up and we're ready to go. It turned out pretty nice. Now, here's what you will have when you're doing multiple hoopings like this. You may have where it's a little bit off right here, which would mean it's a little bit off over here on this side. Now in the middle, it's not gonna matter because you're gonna have applique over the top of this. And when it's all said and done, you really won't see it because right now it's obvious because the thread is a contrasting color to the background fabric. But your thread is going to be the same color as your background fabric, so it really won't be noticeable at all. And I'm going to go back to home. On this one, you don't need a reverse pattern because you can just rotate it. So I have both sides for this 8x12. It said it's too big. I'm going to tell it okay. And it's automatically going the wrong direction, but I'm going to go into edit and rotate. And we're going to rotate 90 and it should do it 180 just because it knows it won't fit on the 90. Going to tell it okay. And embroidery. And I'm assuming if you have an 8x12 hoop, you also have either a camera or a W foot feature or something like that where you can drop a crosshair down onto it if you want. Let's use the camera and see, or on the luminaire you'll have the cone, but let's use a camera as if you have a dream machine, okay? I'm gonna tell it scan and okay. If you've either got the Quattro with both of the upgrade kits or the dream machine, this is the process I would use if that was the machine that I had. Okay, so I can see that the gap, center gap is a little bit off. Actually, my sticker would be right if I was to move it to where the sticker is.